it's really just finding that balance. And, it starts from within, obviously, and then just taking really good care of your skin and your body. That's beauty. And beauty is, when you're happy, you're also beautiful. So, there's many aspects to it, but obviously starting from within and, just living a really meaningful, happy life.
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk. We feature the top medical practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. I have Angela Miller Petersen, a wellness clinician and founder of Amplified Health, known for her wellness glitch philosophy. The idea that aging isn't something we surrender to, it's something we can slow, soften, and even reverse by working with the body's natural design. She focuses on helping women optimize hormones and metabolism through smart HRT, peptides, targeted supplements, and sustainable weight loss strategies, while avoiding the toxic overload and commercial-grade filler that pass for beauty today. So, Dr. Petersen, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's start off with this kind of at the highest level. How did you first get interested in the medical field?
I've been a nurse since the early 2000s, and I was a labor and delivery nurse for many years, and then went back to school kind of midlife and became a nurse practitioner provider. And I've always been interested in the wellness space, and I've been a consumer of aesthetics for years. And I just kind of thought, there's better ways to do things. And so that's how I've focused a lot of my practice is finding, figuring out what the glitch is and finding better ways to make people feel better, look better, and just, overall be more optimized and have that vitality.
Okay. And what caused you to want to start your own practice? I mean, why not just end up working for a hospital or another medical practice somewhere?
Because we're lucky in the state of Utah. Nurse practitioners can have their own practice, as with many other states. And it just made sense to me. I wanted to do things my way. And, I had the ability to be an entrepreneur. And it just made sense at the time to start my own practice.
Okay. So now that you have this practice, I want to go into some of the treatments that you provide. In particular, I want to dive into the treatments that really, as I talked about in the introduction, is defying aging. So there's a couple of different things that go into that. So can you explain that? So if someone wants to defy aging or slow it down or even reverse it, what are some things that they can do?
Well, we really just got to start with the basics first. And, the first thing is hormonal evaluation, especially for women, going through kind of the beginning stages of perimenopause and especially for men as well. Balancing hormones and getting on hormone replacement with bioidentical hormones is really important to reverse the signs of aging. There's a lot of research being done with estrogen and how decreasing estrogen is causing the wrinkling of the skin. And when we lack estrogen, that's what causes the skin to wrinkle. So that's really important to make sure that women are, being adequately supplemented. And then blood sugar regulation, I think is probably the most important thing for anti-aging, to get your blood sugar under control. When you have high levels of blood sugar, there's a process in the skin that actually starts to like crystallize and, causes that saggy skin, obviously being overweight. But all of those things combined, really do either, increase longevity or make you just look older. So it's very basic, but if you can regulate your blood sugar and optimize your hormones, you're going to look and feel much younger.
Okay. And so blood sugar, or I guess reducing the blood sugar, is that really just not drinking sodas, trying to reduce sweets? Is it really as, I guess I call it simple. Is it as simple as that? Or is it kind of more that goes into it than just not drinking sugary drinks and not eating sugary food?
Yeah, I mean, it goes way beyond diet. I have a lot of clients that do everything right, but they still, have a relatively high level of blood glucose. And, getting it in regulation is really the best thing to do that I've seen work is the use of GLP-1s, like semaglutide and tirzepatide, which is, the Ozempics and the Mounjaro. But when used appropriately, they really help to reset metabolism. They help to regulate blood sugar. And, for those people that are in insulin resistance, and you can be in insulin resistance very easy, just being a little bit overweight, they really do help, um, you know, regulate that insulin blood sugar response. And, like I said, when used appropriately, they can be very, very effective for anti-aging benefits.
Okay. And then on the hormone side, I want to talk because you talked about balancing the hormones. Um, for women going through perimenopause or menopause, could you explain a little bit more of what goes into that hormone balancing? Because my understanding is that as they start going through those phases, they just start losing, or I guess the body doesn't produce the hormones that they really need. So where do they
Correct.
start with that? Do they basically go into a practice like yours, kind of see like, hey, where are my hormones? Am I below average? What do I need? Or like, where do they start and what do they have to just be aware of as they go through that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody, but the first thing to do is, a blood draw. So, it can be evaluated what you're lacking, where you're at and kind of the perimenopause cycle. And we look at the FSH level. And so when that starts to increase, that tells me that the ovaries are working overtime to try to produce hormones. And then looking just at the overall levels, sometimes with women, it can be tough because they fluctuate with the menstrual cycle. But usually I can get a pretty good indication of what's going on. And most women are low in testosterone, they're low in progesterone, and the estrogen, is can be okay, but even just a little bit of a dip can cause some pretty significant changes for women.
Mm. And so you mentioned testosterone. I think that's something that not a lot of people realize that for women, testosterone is important. But how do you look at testosterone in women versus in men? Like, I'm sure it's just
Well,
a level, but
it's completely different for women and men. Men, obviously, it's much, much higher. And the testosterone in men these days is just across the board very, very low. And it's also subjective. So, some women will feel good at a certain level, some women feel better, at a higher level. So, I look at lab values, but I also, ask the client and get a subjective analysis of, how is it you're feeling? Do we need to adjust this? Do you think you need a little more? So there's a lot of, you kind of got to play with things a lot with women. Men, it's a little more standard. Most men that I see have testosterone levels below 400, which is pretty low, quote unquote normal. But for most men, they feel much better, at levels of, above 700, even into, 900 to 1,000 is much more optimal for men.
Okay. And you mentioned that you kind of have to play with the levels. So is that something where it's you kind of have a range of where you know when we need to be in, but then when you start giving them the hormones from there, they just to figure out like kind of what's the optimal range for them?
Yeah. So, it's just like I said, it's a subjective analysis as well as looking at lab work.
Mhm.
And so you just ask the right questions. How are you feeling? How are you sleeping? How's your libido? How's your energy? Are you gaining weight? Those kinds of things. And if those, questions arise, then we just play with it a little bit. Like I personally like my testosterone a little bit higher. And I feel better that way. Gives me tons of energy. And it just, some people can handle that and some people can't. So it's really just, a very subjective look as well as, looking at the clinical lab values and stuff.
Okay. And with the hormones, my understanding is that there's different modalities that you can deliver hormones. I think some you can take like almost like in a pill form. I guess I'll call it
Yep.
ingestibles, injections, pellets, creams. Is there kind of a, I guess, what's the main difference between these different modalities? And is there one that is that you'd recommend, or does it really just kind of depend on the individual, like what's going
It
on for them?
You're exactly right. It just depends on the individual. Some people do really well with creams. Some people do, better with an oral dissolvable troche that, is a sublingual dissolves sublingually and gets into the bloodstream pretty quickly. Some people really like pellets. I like pellets a lot. However, there's kind of a buildup for pellets and then there's a decline. So some people don't like, the wait around time when things get to an optimal level.
Mhm.
So that can be kind of annoying, but pellets are great because you don't have to think about it when, they are working. But there's lots of different modalities. Most men do the injectable cypionate, but there's a new medication on the market called Kysotrex, and it is an oral testosterone supplement medication that you take twice daily. And it's a little bit more in tune with the natural production of testosterone and is more really aligned with your circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
So it's higher in the morning and kind of decreases throughout the day. But a lot of men that I treat really like that because it is more natural. It doesn't shut down your own testosterone production and it just keeps them very steady, every day.
Okay. Okay. So that's the hormone side of it.
Yeah.
You also implement peptides as well. So could you explain what a peptide is? I've heard of peptides. I know it's good for you, but for the life of me, I can't describe what it is. So, like, what is a peptide?
Well, peptides really at their like scientific base are amino acids. So it's a chain of, a protein is 40 amino acids and above, and then a peptide is, less than 40 amino acids.
Mhm.
And what they really do are they're cell signalers. So they wake up the body, they make cellular activity kind of work how it's supposed to. And there's so many peptides right now. Like it's becoming a very kind of interesting aspect of medicine because you can heal your body, you can increase your growth hormone, you can use it for skin tightening, you can obviously use it for weight loss. Semaglutide and tirzepatide, Ozempic, and Mounjaro are peptides at their core. That's what they are. And so they really help to turn the body's cellular activity on, and you can get amazing results from them. There's a lot of, um, internet stuff going on, and there's different sources to get them. Some of them are coming from research pharmacies, which aren't as necessarily regulated. Um, well, there's the interruption. Sorry. So, they're really cool and they can, when used appropriately, they are very, very effective. But the growth hormone is kind of the umbrella of hormones. And so as we age, that goes down. And so there's many peptides that help your pituitary gland to produce more growth hormone, and that can help with muscle building, metabolism, energy. It does help with a little bit with the libido, but they've isolated a lot of these peptides to do certain things and they're replicated in our body, so it's a very natural way to get some health improvements. Some of the ones that I really like are it's called BPC 157. It's called the body protective compound, and that helps with healing and circulation. It helps repair some gut issues. It helps promote collagen in joints. So for injury repair, it's amazing. And then the other one I like to piggyback with that is TB 500, and that also helps with circulation. And these are also very effective for sexual wellness because they're increasing, circulation throughout your body.
So, and are they injectables? Are they pills? Like,
Both.
oh.
So there's injectables, there's some that are oral. I'm actually speaking with a company this week that has a sublingual form that they're doing, kind of like a Listerine strip
Hmm?
type of delivery system. So the science on this is evolving every day, and it just, it's kind of personal preference, what the client wants. Some people are adverse to needles, and so they prefer the oral or this sublingual dissolvable I'm kind of excited about.
Okay. So are they kind of like for people who are just learning about peptides, are they kind of like vitamins? It's like, oh, my vitamin C is low. I take a pill for vitamin C.
Not necessarily. Like I said, they're amino acids.
Okay.
So they're turning on that cellular activity. They're telling the body, hey, this is a little sluggish. Like, let's get this going a little bit.
Mhm.
Vitamins and supplements are completely different and have different modalities, but the peptide source is really just getting, the cell receptors to activate and, make that cellular activity just work better.
Got it. Now, and I think that's a perfect segue into the next part is the supplement side. So with the supplements, how do you look at these supplements when you're putting together this entire package together for health for your clients? What
Well, there's a lot of garbage out there for sure. I actually just keep it very simple. One of the supplements that I recommend that's very cheap and easy is real mineral salt. Most clients that I evaluate their lab work are pretty low in sodium. Even though our American diet is very high in sodium, it's not high in real mineral salt. And that will help activate cellular activity. That helps activate your mitochondria. It gives you incredible energy. So that's a super easy one. Vitamin D is also really important. But then there's so much out there for supplements, and this has been huge for so many years, but a lot of it's kind of junk. You don't really need that much of it. You just stick to the basics. Really, my favorites are vitamin methylated B12, glutathione for detox, glutamine for gut repair, and it also helps regulate sugar, like cravings for sugar. So it just kind of depends on the person, but we really don't need all of this, the ones that are these MLM companies and this, that, and the other thing. You really don't need that much. You just kind of need to stick to the basics like magnesium, calcium, potassium, but that also goes with sodium. And, the sodium part, I've found in my practice is just lacking across the board for people.
Okay. So now with all these, I guess I call it protocols, there must be some common myths or misconceptions that your clients come to you with when it comes to all these different types of treatments. What would you say is some of the most common myths or misconceptions about these treatments and what you provide?
Well, I think there's the common myth is that it's going to solve all your problems.
Mm,
So, like I said in the beginning, starting with the basics, hormone replacement, right, blood sugar regulation, those are the basics. And that's what you really need to do. And then the rest of it is just you kind of pick and choose what you think is going to work for you. Like some people swear by, turmeric, some people swear by, really any variety of vitamins and supplements, but you just have to, you got to do what works for you. A lot of it's a waste of money. But like I said, if you just stick with the basics, you're going to be in really good shape.
okay. And in what situation would someone be in where they say, hey, I need to go see Dr. Petersen in her practice? Like, what symptoms would they be feeling where it's like, hey, these treatments can actually help you?
Really, the initial kind of complaint is fatigue,
Mm,
not feeling like yourself, gaining weight, lack of libido. But really, it's the fatigue that brings most people in. It's just like I'm so tired. Like, why am I so tired all the time? Like I think I'm sleeping good, but that's really, I think, the biggest, entry point into really trying to turn your health around.
okay, good to know. Now, Dr. Peterson, you also have a book, the Wellness Glitch.
Yes,
You
I
talk a
do.
little bit about the book. Like, I'm assuming what you talk about in the book is kind of what we talked about for these treatments. Good, but
Yeah.
what is the book really about?
So, I wrote this book because I just started noticing things in society that were, causing people to be unwell. And, it comes, from the top down. And there's so many things in our, political system and our government and different health mandates in our healthcare system that are just not making people well. And so I dive into it. I talk a lot about the Women's Health Initiative that came out in the early 2000s that really scared women into doing hormone replacement. And
Mm,
now it's been debunked as junk science, but it really isolated, a whole generation of women that are now, dealing with osteoporosis and dementia and, cancer that could have been avoided. And it's really unfortunate because now it's just, it's too late. But there's women, in their mid 60s that are going through dementia. And if they would have had adequate hormone replacement, they, probably would not be suffering. So I do talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about the obesity epidemic and how, our food supply is very corrupted and our water and our air and all these things that are happening that are really making people just not feel good. And when you don't feel good, you're not a good human, you're not a good citizen, you're not a good, participant in your community and your family. And I break it down in ways that we can fix things and, get back to the basics and really try to, you know, empower ourselves to demand better. We demand better water. We don't need fluoride in our water. We demand better air. There's, this odd fog that's hanging around most cities right now, and we're not really sure where it's coming from, but the air quality is really bad. And, when you demand better from our leaders and from, the people that control a lot of these systems, hopefully we can make some change, but it's about awareness. And when we start, becoming aware of the glitches in our life, we can just make better choices. And, a lot of people just, go about their daily life and don't think about it. But, if we just tweak a few little things, we can just be so much healthier and just so much more productive, humans.
Okay, it's amazing then. So let's say that someone's read your book or has listened to this podcast, and they said that I'm sold. Okay, I want to start looking at these treatments. But let's say that they're maybe not around your area, and they're looking for a provider who can give them a high quality of treatment. It's using good quality. I guess I'll call it supplies. I don't know another way to
Mhm.
say it, and can really help them. What would be the most important piece of advice you can give to that person as they're looking for the right provider? Like, what should they be on the lookout for?
It's really hard. I gotta say, I get a ton of referrals from people that, try to go to their general, practitioner, and I can't even tell you some of the women that I've had as referrals, they go to their provider about, these issues that I'm talking about, and they get ignored and, told, oh, you don't need to do that. I've had a woman come in crying that her OBGYN told her to go to marriage counseling. Like, I mean, it's just some of the misinformation is terrible. So it is really tough, and you really have to be your own advocate. Functional medicine providers are great. Naturopathic providers are really good. I'm always available for questions, and I can, lead you in the right direction. I do a lot of remote stuff as well where when it's appropriate. But, just being your own advocate and not taking no for an answer, when you don't feel good, you got to keep going. People, nurse practitioners like myself in private practice are probably the better way to go because we look at the whole picture and we try to, treat our clients holistically, and we give them, most of my consultations take over an hour. And a lot of, just general providers, see, 5 to 10 patients an hour, and you're not going to get all of your answers, in that short of a period of time.
Okay. So, and you did mention the story about the OBGYN talking about marriage counseling. I thought that was actually very interesting because when it comes to hormone optimization, if the hormones are off, then that could lead to a potentially very disruptive, chaotic marriage. So I've
Correct.
actually heard of uh, hormone replacement experts actually resolving that and actually saving marriages. So is it
100%.
okay? So there is some truth to that if you're having trouble with the marriage, then just regulating the hormones could actually make it a lot more harmonious and save marriages.
Absolutely. I,
Okay.
I mean, I see it a lot, and I've seen, couples kind of have a like second honeymoon phase and have kind of come back to each other, and it can just make or break the difference for both men and women.
Hmm, good to know. Now, also, Dr. Pierce, I'm curious, what role do you believe creativity plays in what you do with your clients and your patients? Is it important? Because I think when people think about medicine, it's creativity is probably the last thing you want your medical provider to be with you. You want them to follow the right protocol. But I mean, there's also the other part of that where everyone is an individual. And you talked about, hey, a lot of it's subjective as well. So, how important is creativity in what you do?
Oh, it's vitally important. Sticking within obviously, guidelines, but if something's not working, we got to try something else. And, being able to offer those options is, part of creativity and, you know, laying out what else they could try. I try not to overwhelm people with too much at first because, a health journey can be very overwhelming. But as I get to know the client, they'll be like, okay, let's try this. Let's try this. I've heard about this. And I'm like, okay, we can do all of those things. So yeah, I mean, I get very creative. Like, well, that's not working, so let's do this and let's tweak this. And you have to have that mindset that it's just not one protocol that's going to fix everything for one person.
Okay. Now, I'm sure that throughout your experience, you must have had some memorable cases or even maybe challenging cases that you've had to deal with. Is there maybe one story that comes to mind that you can share of just a memorable case or a tough case and how you were able to get them a great result in the end?
Well, I do a lot of weight loss and I'm really passionate about that, but I've had a lot of weight loss clients that, do these these peptides,
Mm.
and they don't work. And so we've got to try other things. And I've been combining them. I've been adding in other peptides, but really seeing the weight loss journey for people. And it's actually one of my best friends. I've helped. She's lost over 150 pounds
Oh,
and is a completely different person. And she just has the joy back in her life. She was having tremendous pain, and that's gone. And being able to help her with weight loss, that to me is just so satisfying because their lives are completely changed. And they're better family members, they're better spouses, they're better parents when they feel better about themselves. So I've have a lot of that. I can't really say that there's been a couple that really stand out, but helping people on their weight loss journey is my absolute true passion.
I see. Now, where do you think the future of wellness is going?
Um, That's interesting. AI is definitely having a huge impact on it. I, do get a lot of clients for consultations that have a laundry list of things they want to do because, AI told them this is, what they should be doing. And
Mm,
so being able to sort through that and be like, well, that's great, but not really necessary.
mm,
That's where the human aspect comes in. But people are taking really, they're just becoming their own advocates and, trying to figure out ways to make themselves feel better. And, AI is definitely a tool, but you need an educated provider to kind of filter through the noise because you can't do everything at once. That's just like not feasible. And then, then you go down these roads on the internet with sources that aren't really trusted. And, when you're injecting things into your body that you don't really know where they're coming from, you can get into trouble. So, using a trusted provider with trusted sources, I think is paramount. You can have reactions to any number of things, and, being able to call, someone that knows how to handle that, is really important. But AI is definitely changing how people are, taking their wellness, into their own hands.
okay. And for your practice, Amplified Health, what's your vision for your practice?
I mean, I love doing these podcasts and I love being an educator, and that's why I wrote this book, because I would really like to see myself in more of an educator role and being able to filter through the noise for people. That's kind of where I see myself going. I would obviously love to grow my practice, but my personal goal is to really be more of an educator in the health and wellness space and help people begin their wellness journey. And if that starts, usually starts with hormones and weight loss.
Okay. Well, Dr. Peterson, I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at ampdhealth.net. So,
Correct.
last question for you. What does beauty mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it's about balance. It's about feeling good and looking good, and those two obviously go hand in hand. Um, the aesthetics part of my business too is I try to do things more naturally. I'm not a huge advocate of toxins like the neurotoxins for muscle relaxation and wrinkles, and I'm definitely not a fan of commercial grade fillers. But it's really just finding that balance. And, it starts from within, obviously, and then just taking really good care of your skin and your body. That's beauty. And beauty is, when you're happy, you're also beautiful. So, there's many aspects to it, but obviously starting from within and, just living a really meaningful, happy life.
Great answer. Well, there you have it, Dr. Peterson sharing her expertise. So, Dr. Peterson, where can people contact you in your practice?
You can text me. I'm happy to answer questions. Our phone number is 385-486-4181, and I monitor that texting line all the time. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm on X or Twitter at the Wellness Glitch, Fix the Glitch Now. And then I'm also on Instagram at Amplified Total Wellness. So any of those avenues, just feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Peterson, this is amazing. Thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.